Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Tazria, and it begins in Leviticus 12, and it's part of a series of Torah portions that deal quite extensively with the issues of ritual purity. Now, there are different things about the human body that can create states of impurity, different sorts of excretions, etc., And this whole issue is actually very difficult for us to understand today in modern times. The idea that a perfectly normal physical situation can create a state of impurity. Well, I'm not going to be able to answer that question today because I do believe that if we look at it at that most physical level, it is indeed very difficult to understand. But I think there's another layer of understanding that's going on here, one that I think is much easier for us to understand, and that's what I want to deal with today, and we'll be dealing with something similar to this next week as well. Anyway, so in the beginning of Leviticus 12, we actually deal with a very happy occasion, an occasion of childbirth. If a woman is to give birth and she has a boy, okay, we learn then that she is going to be in a state of impurity for 7 days, very similar to the state of impurity that results from menstruation. Afterwards, she's going to be an additional 33 days in a stage of becoming pure. Afterwards, she will bring a sacrifice in the temple. Now, if she has a girl, it's a very similar idea, but it's twice the length. It's the first time is 2 weeks instead of 1 week, and then the second stage of coming into purity is 66 days instead of 33 days. Okay, but again, as I said, I'm not going to dwell on the details in that sense, but I wanted to dwell with the concept. What's going on here? How could it be that such a happy occasion as childbirth would be treated as an instance of impurity, as a time when you are far from the temple? You can't go to the temple during that time. And this is really probably the most practical result of a state of impurity. When you're in a state of impurity, you cannot go to the temple. You have to first purify yourself and only then can go to the temple. Okay. Another thing that's very interesting here is in the very middle of this discussion of what the childbirth woman should be doing, we have, first of all, that if she has a baby boy, she will be 7 days in this state of impurity. And then before we go on to the rest of the impurity, we have a whole different thing introduced. And on the 8th day, you will circumcise the foreskin of this baby, the baby boy. Well, what does that have to do with anything? And by the way, this is the only time in the Bible that the actual commandment of circumcising a baby is listed in the context of a commandment to the nation of Israel. We know about circumcising before. We read about it in the context of Abraham, God's commandment to him, telling him that he should circumcise his son. At that point, it's Ishmael and himself, and that this is something that will be carried forward in his family forever, as a sign of the covenant between God and Abraham and his children, which then become the children of Israel. But that is never really, it's not listed in the Ten Commandments. It's not listed in all the different commandments that are given from the middle of Exodus onward, given as commandments to the nation of Israel. Only here. Okay, so this really is the source of the commandment to the nation as a nation, and not just as a tradition passed down from Abraham. Okay, so what do we do? What's going on here? So I think, first of all, we have to have an understanding of what is purity and impurity. The result, as I said, is distance from the temple. But what is going on here? And if you look at the various levels of impurity, as mentioned here in the Bible, and particularly as explained in Jewish tradition, the most severe example of impurity, the one that requires the most drastic measures in order to become pure, is someone who comes in contact with a dead body. In which case you not only have to wait a certain time and cleanse yourself in pure waters, but you also have to use the ashes of the red heifer. What many commentators have noted, therefore, that purity has some connection with death. Pure impurity has some connection with death, And the closer you are to actually death, a dead body, that of course is the deepest level of impurity that requires the longest or most complicated process in order to become pure. But even here in childbirth, which you would associate with life, here you are, the woman is giving life. How can that then be associated with impurity, which, as we said, is typically associated with some level of death? And here I think is a very interesting interpretation that I read some time ago, that essentially, if we look at it from the perspective of the baby is new life. That baby is now being born, and everyone rejoices in a new person, a new life that is being given. However, from the perspective of the mother is now separating from her body. She carried this life in her body, and now that life is being taken away from her body. So in a sense, for her, she is now going through a type of death. Not a real death, of course, but something living has been separated from her body. So it's like a quasi-death. And I think it's very interesting. And therefore, of course, all the secretions that happen after her childbirth are all connected to that same process of separating, something leaving her body that was alive. And to me, this says something very powerful about what a woman goes through. Very often we've learned about, for example, postpartum depression, and that's an extreme situation. Women have it, but most women do not have it. But there is a sense that accompanies childbirth, a sense at the same time rejoicing in life, a sense that, oh, now this baby that I've carried in my body is outside of my body. That is a different kind of process. And perhaps this idea of having the woman be away from the temple, away from public, perhaps just being able to be quiet and with herself and with her baby for whether a month or 2 months. This is an important process to adjust to this baby from being within your body to the baby being outside your body. And what does that have to do with the circumcision? So here, I think, if you'll notice where the circumcision comes in, it's chronologically logical. The scripture says 7 days you will be in this state of impurity after the birth, and on the 8th day you will circumcise the baby. So it's on the 7th day and then on the 8th day. But on the other hand, the circumcising the baby doesn't seem to have anything to do with the state of impurity or purity, which is the subject of these verses. However, you can say that the act of circumcising your baby is in itself an act of purity. Because as we said, what is purity? Purity means you can go to the temple. Purity is a symbol of being close to God. Okay, it doesn't mean you're a bad person, but you're in a state that allows you to come close to God. And the circumcision ceremony is an evidence, as we noted about when God first gives it this commandment to Abraham. It is a sign. It is a sign of the covenant that God entered into with Abraham, that same covenant will be carried on through Abraham, his descendants, onto all the children of Israel. What better way to express closeness between God and a new Jewish baby than through this idea of circumcision? So even though this woman is still in a state of somewhat impurity, she has completed her 7 days of impurity. She is now moving into a process of purity. And on that 8th day, the first day of that next process, we have this amazing ceremony of circumcision of that covenant, which will now bring this baby, which she has given birth to, and bring this baby in that covenant with God that she herself is already a part of. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below, as well as on the notification bell, and that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.